experience. If you think about the customer experience you have any business, right? And when you are deliberate, and almost nobody is, right? But when you're deliberate about the customer experience that you want, the patient experience that you want to design and craft, where you want to stand out, where you want to be remarkable, what you wish to be known for, and you do that in a deliberate fashion and you really, level up that experience, they will say the right things about you. And, we can get into the how you break that down, the blocking and tackling a little bit too, but ultimately pick what is it you wish to be known for, right? And do more of that. Ask your favorite patients. Ask those patients, number one, that you love working with. Ask those patients who have sent somebody else to you, or the patients who have come back for another injury or something. Why did you pick us? They will tell you what that thing is.
Sturdy McKee finally on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Sturdy.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
I think I was reading your tweets as I was still like a second-year PT student.
Tweets, yeah. That we were some of the first people on Twitter early on, but I'm not over there anymore.
Well, it's like anything. It's like you do it for a while. I've burned out of it, and then I'll come back. Like you got to walk away for a while. I do that a lot with golf. It's like I play golf like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, I love it. And then the 5th time, I'm like, too much. And then I'll be back next year. Right. But for people who don't know you, I dislike when podcast hosts say it's lazy and they say, tell the audience about you. I'm like, that's lazy. That's your job as a host. Like if I had friends walk in and then you walked in, I would not be, hey, Sturdy, tell everybody about you. I would go, this is Sturdy. He's been a PT for over 25 years and you were a multi-location practice owner for 20, which is, I'm sure there's a lot of lessons to unpack there. We'll get into it. But for the past 8 years, you've been working on with practice owners, because you were one, to help them do things like build strong cultures, which is not just pizza parties and birthday cakes. It's not it. Level up their customers' experience, which is not just what the header on the email looks like, and then grow their businesses, which is what PT practices are. And you don't really grow those things by accident. Find him at sturdycoaching.com. How was your intro? Was that good?
It's perfect.
Good.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. So hold on. First question's always the hardest. What are you drinking today? You're drinking coffee, or what's your drink of choice?
I'm on the West Coast, so it's
it's a little
middle of the afternoon. I have another client, so I'm drinking water with Mio.
That's okay. So wait, how is Mio? I do Noon. That's like an electrolyte thing. How's Mio? I've never tried it.
Yeah, I do like the vitamin B.
But taste-wise, I mean, is it like good? Is it palatable? Is it good?
It's fine.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm not going out of my way. I'm looking for what I want, and and it's inoffensive. So no, it's not awesome, but
it gets the job done. I'm drinking lemonade beer. This is because it's summer and it's 5 o'clock where I am. So summer shandy, Leinenkugels. Well, cheers to your Mio, and I'll cheers to my Leinenkugel summer shandy. It's lemonade mixed with beer. And the first time I heard that, I was like, this is going to be disgusting, but it's not. I like it. But I can only have, like Twitter, I can only have 1 or 2.
Right.
All right. Well, cheers. All right. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about the question that I want to ask, or you said you have another client coming up later on today. When you first work with people, I'm guessing you asked the question, or the question I want to hear your response to is, what's your most effective marketing channel? And I feel like that's a good question to ask people that if you just start to work with them, because it's going to tell you a lot, like, where do you think your strength is? Because then you get to ask great follow-up questions with like, why, or how do you know that, or how did you decide that? So why is that a fun question to ask? Or why do you think that might be a fun question to ask?
Yeah, it's definitely not the first question we ask, but yeah, I think it's a big question because there's so many people out there trying to sell marketing to you, and there are so many different channels and places, and it gets really confusing, and it's very muddied, in particular by the marketers, right? So I'm not going to throw them all under the bus. Some of them do a great job. Some execute extremely well. Yeah. A lot of business owners, though, don't think of it. They think of it as a black box, and they're going to hire somebody to go do it. Or they think they have to learn everything about it, or they get kind of stuck on a channel, like, I have to do Facebook ads, or whatever. And really, if you think about it, almost everybody who's been in it for any length of time says their most effective marketing channel is word of mouth. It's their patients going out and telling other people. So
it's power. So All right, so let's go into like what are the different types though? Word of mouth is pretty general.
Well, word of mouth is really general, except that it also, if you think about it, it provides instant credibility.
It does.
Because if you're hearing it from someone you trust, then you're much more likely that trust gets transferred, at least some of it, right? And that like when we talk about different types of word of mouth, that's going to come out at different levels too. Because do I trust my uncle who tells me I need to go see this PT, or do I trust my doctor more,
Right.
right? Or do I trust 100 Google reviews,
Right.
right? So there are different types of word of mouth. And the way I kind of break them down is there's one to one. That's that person who really likes you, but has told their spouse to come see you or told their father-in-law to come see you or whatever. And it's kind of that one-to-one ratio thing. And I know leveraged is now turned into this corporate catchphrase, whatever, but the leverage word of mouth is the other one that I'm looking for. And that can come through somebody like a professional, like someone who's respected, who's going to see a whole lot of people, like a physician. It can come through, name your referral source, but any of the people who refer to you on a regular basis,
Yep.
that's leverage word of mouth because they're not sending one person when it happens; they're sending multiple people over time, right? Um, the other leverage word of mouth is like the reviews,
Yeah.
and here's an example, right? I went to this park for a soccer match. When I looked it up on Google Maps, there was essentially nothing. There were like two photos, and I didn't know anything about it. So I took a picture of the park. I took several. Put a picture of my dog. You can come there. The soccer pitch was really nice. This other stuff. My picture of that soccer pitch is the cover photo on Google Maps for that thing, and it's gotten 50,000 views, and that was 2 years ago, right? So I had no idea, Jimmy, when I took that picture and put it up. I'm just like, somebody's going to be coming here for a soccer match, or somebody's going to be coming here for whatever. They need to know, can they bring their dog? Can they,
Right.
is there anything else to do? Whatever. I'm like, maybe a couple people will get it. 50,000 people have seen that review and photo because Google sends you the reports too, right?
Oh, I didn't
You're
know
a
that.
local guide. Yeah. You do some reviews, you do a couple pictures. They start sending you because they want you to do more,
Right.
right? So, 100 people found this useful and all that stuff. So that kind of incentivizes, the volunteerism around posting more reviews and that kind of
Right.
thing. Um, but think about that for your patients. That's huge. If
Mm.
I put a positive review and a picture up, and over the next year, maybe it's not 50,000, but maybe it's 1,000, how else can you reach that many people for free? And by the way, through somebody else where immediately that credibility.
Right. Well, I was going to say. So there's I found this fascinating when I first learned the exercise principles, the fit principle, frequency, intensity, time, and type. And I was like, oh,
Got it.
these are communication principles. These are marketing. So it's like
Yes, they are.
word of mouth from your crazy neighbor. That's good, but you're like, that guy's all crazy. But word of mouth from your buddy who you like, like, and trust, right? That's that funnel we talk about all the time, which is like, I know my crazy neighbor, sort of like him. I wouldn't invite him in the house, but I'll stand in the yard and have a beer with him. And do I trust him? I'm like, no. But my
With your
buddy,
healthcare. Right.
my buddy I've known for 20 years. Like I've seen him make some mistakes, and he makes good decisions and that's different. So, how do you typically encourage or educate people to be able to facilitate the right word of mouth? Because not only is someone telling them about you, you want to make sure you don't want to put words in their mouth, but you want to make sure that the words that are coming in their mouth are clear and concise. You want to maybe not craft the narrative, but help them.
Well, you don't see, that's a great question because most of the time people are going to answer it at a very superficial level. And what you're trying to do is actually go back to the root. And the root is your patient experience. If you can think about the customer experience you have any business, right? What is that like? And when you are deliberate, and almost nobody is, right? But when you're deliberate about the customer experience that you want, the patient experience that you want to design and craft, where you want to stand out, where you want to be remarkable, what you wish to be known for, and you do that in a deliberate fashion and you really, level up that experience, they will say the right things about you. And, we can get into the how you break that down, the blocking and tackling a little bit too, but ultimately pick what is it you wish to be known for,
Yeah.
right? Do you and do more of that. And another great thing, if you've been in practice for a while, you've got a couple therapists, ask ask your favorite patients. Ask those patients, number one, that you love working with. Ask those patients who have sent somebody else to you, or the patients who have come back for another injury or something. Why did you pick us? They will tell you what that thing is. And the other part, and one of the things I love about you, Jimmy, is too many people are trying to be neutral. Sometimes they call it professional. They try to be inoffensive. They're trying to fit in, right? I mean, dude, you land at a conference and you see the PTs at the airport at baggage claim. They've got polos and khakis, and,
Yeah.
and you know who the
Same.
you
Yeah.
know, you look around and go, oh, those are the people going to the conference. I did that with my daughter in San Diego at one of the conferences. We went out for dinner. We were in the Italian Quarter, and she's naming the PTs. I'm like, yep, 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 right? Because they're all trying. But we do that,
Yeah.
and that is actually that's a path to commoditization. That's a path to blending in and not being seen.
Here's a question for you. Do you want to boost your clinic revenue by $290 per patient per quarter? Of course you do. That's rhetorical. Physiotech's remote therapeutic monitoring can help you do that. Enhance patient outcomes, ease provider workload, and turbocharge your earnings. Kickstart with RTM at physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca. And the thing you interact with the most at your clinic, if you're a therapist, like it or not, is your EMR. MW Therapy's all-in-one outpatient PT EMR gives you seamless integration of patient portals, marketing automations, and billing, all at one unbelievable value. Switching over is a breeze too. Kick the tires, take a test drive at mwtherapy.com. And where is your PT career going? It's not rhetorical, it's literal. Embark on extraordinary patient care adventures with Jackson Therapy Partners. Visit them at jacksontherapy.com. This is perfect for physical therapists eager to make their mark, to do what you want to do, where you want to do it. Discover where your career can take you at jacksontherapy.com. Well, let me ask you this. I don't want to forget this. You said something about the customer experience or the patient experience.
Yeah.
When does it start? I'd love to hear. I want people to hear your answer. When does the patient experience start?
As soon as they hear about you.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will be like, well, as soon as I see the PT. And I agree with you, which is it starts even before. Brother Basil, I learned public relations from a Franciscan friar because I went to a Catholic university. And he said, two things. Number one, you're either doing if you ask someone, are you doing public relations, are you doing marketing? And they say no, he's like, you're wrong. You're either doing it well or you're not doing it. That's it. You're doing it well, you're not doing it well. But you're doing it. You're doing it well or poorly, you decide. And it starts the second someone finds out about you. That's exactly when it starts, not when they walk through the door.
No, and you're exactly right. And humans are self-referential, right? We think about our own. We see the world through our eyes. So if you're a therapist and you've started a solo practice and you're thinking about bringing somebody else on, your default position is very often that patient experience starts with me. They've already had 5 touch points before they got to you, right? And each of those is important. Now, the other thing that's really important, remember I just said, decide what you wish to be known for. Because there are people out there selling their thing and they're telling you what they can do. And, their thing's the most important, whether that's your front desk person has to be, they're the linchpin, or your website has to be the latest modern, or the doctor, whatever, dude. They're all look for that self-interest piece, right? And where I've kind of come full circle, because one of the things I was doing too many things for clients, and now I'm much more hyper-focusing in on the customer experience, because from that comes the word of mouth marketing.
Right.
From that comes the branding. From that, you need to have the other stuff aligned with it. So you have to have a website that's easy to use, right? By the way, here's one tip for anybody listening. If your phone number is not at the top of your website to push and click, make that change tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because that you're putting an obstacle, an unnecessary hurdle up for me as a patient or customer, right?
Well, you highlight something, which is your website. Actually, it's not for you. This is not where you get to show off. Your website is actually you're the last person your website is for. Website is for the people you wish to communicate with and serve, help them understand. That's what your website's for.
So is your whole business.
You're right. Correct. It's not for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, your podcast.
Right. It's not for me.
Right. I mean, there are things about it that you want to align with. There are things about it that you want to be engaging and for you and meaningful for you, right? And that's where you get back to like the purpose of the business, the higher purpose. And I have people that I talk to that are before their clients, we'll put it that way. What's the purpose of the business? Well, they're to make a profit. Like, no, that's table stakes. The business should make a profit. Yes, you are correct. But you could do any business and make a profit. Why are you doing this? Right? Why did you go to PT school? Why did you invest all the time and effort? Why did you go into all this? And ultimately it comes down to some version of helping people or getting people better, or having an impact, something around that, right? That needs to be carried through everything else in your business. But that's the part that's fulfilling to you. Essentially everything else in your model needs to be centered around a target customer that you've defined clearly, that you know exactly what you're doing for. And again, this is where kind of that, when we start into that customer experience piece, it branches into a whole bunch of other things that need to get decided and articulated in your business.
You and I both have a word that we like. The first time I heard it, I think I had already been running a radio station for several years, and I had never read, I wasn't really into reading books about it. Like, my path to like learning how to communicate was like, did the morning announcements in 6th grade, thought it was cool, decided to be a radio DJ, went to school for communications, kept just showing up at the college radio station until they gave me a show. And then somebody there told me you're supposed to do internships in the summer. And I was like, okay. Then I just started calling places. So I never really formally started reading books outside of textbooks. And I never really had conversations about marketing. It was just, I just watched. This was until I was running a radio station and a GM made it like a point that we're going to rotate amongst the program directors. So like almost clinic directors, right? Because there was 4 radio stations in one building. He was like, every week of the month, you're going to do an in-service. And back then I was like, dude, I got stuff to do. Looking back, I was like, this was a really cool idea. And the first in-service I did, now he forced me to like go outside of how I normally learned, because now I needed to see one, do one, teach one, right? Which is a cool methodology. And I walked into a Barnes and Noble and literally just went to she's not a librarian, but she's like the woman who knows where everything is, like in a little kiosk. And I was like, I need to like give a presentation on marketing, but I already know everything. So like, just give me like whatever. And she handed me a Seth Godin book. And I forget which one it was, but essentially the lesson, the word that I think both you and I like, it blew my mind. It's remarkable. And he like took like a page or two to be like, what's remarkable? And I'm like, things that are great or big. And he's like, no, it's something that is worthy of making a remark about. And this also ties into, word of mouth is like, it's not an ad. You can buy attention. And I'm not saying you shouldn't pay for access to earn people's attention, because I don't think you actually buy people's attention. I think you pay for access to potentially earn people's attention. Sure. But this word remarkable is like, hey, I had this beer and it was so good 7 years ago that I'm still, every summer I get excited when it comes out. I tell people, hey, have you ever had this Leinenkugel Summer Shandy? It's so great. You can't have 6 of them because it's really sweet. It's lemonade beer. That is remarkability. Is they did something so well that I like, that I'm willing to tell people that know me and like me. I don't know if they trust me or know me at least. And that's marketing. If you were to boil it down, that's if you were to have a periodic table of marketing, that to me is like oxygen or nitrogen. It's like the first or second element on the periodic table. Why do you like remarkability, or how do you explain it?
Oh, I totally, we're in lockstep here, because remarkable, I think one of the things he did in the book, like when you see it in writing, he put re-markable, like remark or remarkable, right? Separated, remarkable. Like, are you worthy of remark? And one of the challenge questions I read in either in his book or in blog was, took another step, and what he said was, people are going to go home tonight and talk about 3 things at dinner. How do you get into the top 3?
That is brilliant.
Right. And that starts bringing a deliberateness to the whole thing as well. Correct. Like, we do a great job. People love us. They talk about us already. How many people went through your clinic today? By the way, this is a question I've been asking my clients lately, repeatedly, essentially every one of them. How many people did you see today in your company? Right. And it might be 30, 50, 100, 150, whatever, depending on their size and scale and whatever. Some of them are 200. How many of those people are going to talk about you tonight? Right. And every one of them kind of stops, right? They start to think about it. And once again, if you're delivering an exceptional service, and by the way, Jimmy, just for everybody here too, the bar is not set terribly high in the healthcare world.
Right, because you mentioned the sea of sameness at the airport at a PT
Well,
conference, right?
also just we and I'm going broader industry. If you go to the hospital, you go to a doctor, you go to a dentist, anybody, um, there aren't very many of them who have thought about the customer or patient experience from the patient's perspective,
You can see
right?
that from a mile away. Yeah, they optimize systems on like getting information or getting billing, but they don't optimize my
Right,
experience in moving through the system. They don't. I mean, that's my problem, not theirs.
right. They optimize their efficiency,
Correct.
not your convenience,
Correct.
right? Or whatever else is important. So, you start looking at these things, and if you turn it around, I mean, this is another thing. I heard from somebody at a conference a long time ago. It was like, when you walk into your office tomorrow, you pull up into the parking lot, pretend it's the first time you've ever been there, right? When you look at it with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
what's it look like? Because we all get habituated.
It's the curse of knowledge.
Well,
You're
it's
used
even
to it.
it's habit. Yeah, you're totally used to it. I think about, my car with the dog,
Yeah.
and I get in it and I don't really notice, and then my kid gets in it, hasn't been in a week, and is like, "Oh, you need to clean your car out." Right? You get habituated, and you don't really notice those things. But yeah, maybe the plant's dying out front. Maybe the parking lot looks bad. Maybe your front door needs to be clean. I don't know, but
That's
if you're looking at it with
that's un,
fresh eyes,
that's
right?
uncomfortable though, right?
Oh, totally.
Because
Dude, life is
you might
uncomfortable.
have to own like, oh, I haven't really taken care of the outside, but that's uncomfortable. But that's where the change is. That's where the magic is.
Right. Growth is uncomfortable.
Correct.
Right? Any change is uncomfortable, right? There's an old Spanish saying, well, may nothing new arise, or something like that, right? And like, yeah, it's part of our psychology. We want things to be steady and predictable, and the world isn't,
No, it's not.
right? And we see that reflected in people's reactions and all kinds of things, and we try to control whatever we can control, maybe ignore some other stuff, right? But yeah, so to your point, stepping back and really thinking about things from the patient perspective, asking them why you like us, and then thinking about, okay, I want to do more of that. Um, every step of that is uncomfortable, right? Asking for feedback, even positive, like,
Yeah,
why'd you
it
choose
is.
it,
It is.
can be uncomfortable. And then saying, oh, well, we're going to take that thing and we're going to dial it up and be more different, uncomfortable, right? So yeah, but that's also where, I mean, it's why you became a business owner, right? For all the folks that are out there running their own practice, you didn't like something that was going on where you were. You wanted to change. You wanted to do it better. So you're already a step or two ahead in that, willingness to be uncomfortable, to take risks.
And that, so a lot of, I'm imagining anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of what you're doing when you're working with business owners is they took a risk opening a business, and then you get there and then you're like, oh my God, like this is kind of on me. And I need to remember, I need to work on all these things. I envision somebody spinning plates, right? But before I went
I
into it, I was thinking, I'm going to be so different. I'm going to be so different. Then you get there and you're like, oh my God. Like I envision someone who like is like laying on the deck of a boat experiencing like, seasickness. Like we just need to make it go steady. Like you said, nothing new arises. And it's hard to be creative. It's hard to have flexibility unless you have stability in at least some of those things. So you have to at least have some of those plates that are someone else is taking care of them, because that's an option too. You hire people who are better at some of the plates spinning than you are, and you say, you're responsible for these 6. I'm going to be responsible for these 6. I can't be responsible for anything. So I'm imagining a lot of what you do is like psychological. You're dealing with their psychology on risk and understanding if not taking a risk is riskier.
Right. It is. It is, because the environment's changing, right? Things are shifting around you. So yes, you're absolutely right. And I think it's hilarious you said the plate spinning. I literally have the video of Eric Bren and the Ed Sullivan Show on my desktop because I use it. Yeah. Yeah, because people feel that way. And it's not even just business owners, right? But think of it this way. We are all in a state of overwhelm. There's too much stuff coming at us all the time, and we escape through scrolling through social media, or watching Netflix, or playing a game, or getting outside. There are healthier options, there are unhealthy options, all the rest. But we do things to try to kind of decompress. The business owners, that's taken to a whole nother level, because this is another premise that a lot of people kind of miss. Going from 5 employees to 10 employees is not double the complexity.
Okay, help me understand what you mean by that. I think I agree, but
Well, you will in a second. I can do this other camera and draw it out too. But if you think about it, you have 2 people, you have 2 arrows of communication, 2 directions of communication, right? You
correct.
have 3. You have 3 people, you have 6, right? You can conceptualize that pretty quickly. We don't have to draw it. You have 5 people though, and you have 20. Okay, you have 10 people, you have 90, and the complexity increases, at a logarithmic rate. So some every business owner I know gets stuck somewhere, right? And the typical milestones are generally around, excuse me, solo like 1 to 2, 5, 10. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
There's that
You have
graphic
to,
for the
you
live
have to
streamers.
I usually start drawing it. So no, this is perfect.
It
Well, hang on. That's not even necessarily correct though, because the 5 people, it's 10 connections, but each of those arrows goes both ways.
so you can double it.
So double the connections, yeah, and that's why with 10 people it's 90, right?
It's
And
wild.
with yeah, so with 21 it's 410 or 420, right? So it's crazy how many opportunities there are for things to break down.
Because
And
and here's my favorite quote, which is and I'm going to screw up the quote, but you'll get the idea, which is the worst part in communication is when you think it's occurred. Well,
yes,
I said it.
yes,
Can you hear me? And you're like, yeah, I just had a conversation with a company I work with, and the problem was the app that they uses a jargon word that I don't, that means something different to everybody else. The word was
right,
landing page, but really it was like intake form. It was like a pop up like, oh, do you want this email? You want to sign up for our emails? And I was like, design a landing page. And she's like, I did. And for weeks, we're like, why isn't this thing working? She didn't design what
right.
I was asking. So we thought communication occurred. And that's 2 weeks of missed opportunities, which is not a small thing if you're trying to run a damn business.
Right. And that's why those arrows go both directions.
Also correct. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And this is why we need to ask the question, like explain back to me. I mean, that's something we don't get in school, right? Now, after you
No.
practice for a while, you figure it out, or you learn it, or you learn it from somebody else. In some of the better run organizations, they put it as part of their training, but you want to ask the patient, right? How does that sound to you? How do you understand it? Repeat back to me what you think the plan is. What's wrong with that plan? In other words, what's not going to work for you? Not my clinical decision is wrong, but how's it going to fit with your life? We're not taught to do that. So all the communication stuff, actually, for a lot of the folks that we're talking about and talking to, that is one of the things, or the thing that they're most known for. But they're good, and again, the bar's not set terribly high. Think about the interactions you had with your doctor or with their front desk or the dentist or anybody else. You can still be better than everybody else and still be kind of not so good, or okay, or maybe I'm better than average, but average really stinks.
Right.
So how do you take that to the next level? And we're talking about this customer experience and creating, because when you do that and you make it amazing, you create those raving fans, you create the evangelists, they go out and tell other people, it generates more patients, your business grows, right? But until you go back and really think about that critically, and again get uncomfortable, right? Because I brought this up to a couple of clients, and one in particular kind of got a little defensive. They're like, well, we already do a great job. I'm like, well, do you have openings on your schedule? Well, yeah, we had just been talking about that. I knew the answer, right? But I'm like, why? Could you do better? Right? And one of the things, to like, when you're coaching and working with, whether it's a business owner, an employee, or whomever, to me, do the best athletes in the world have a coach?
Absolutely.
But they're already the best.
That's how they got there, and that's how they want to stay there, or that's how they want to improve.
Exactly, because at some point in the process, at some point in their growth and evolution, as an individual, as an athlete, they stopped competing against other people. They want to be better than they were yesterday.
Right.
And and by the way, those are the, I mean, you think about your patients and stuff. They're not worried about what that guy's doing or this person. I want to be better. I want to get back to, right. Those are the folks I love working with, because it's fun. We're not referencing and comparing and anxious about anybody else. They're hyper focused on, yeah, we do a great job. Yes, I have a great team. How do I find more of those people? How do I make the experience for the patients? And then I'm going to flip the coin in a second, but for the patients be even better so that nobody even has a chance of catching up to us, right? And then the next part, because the other company I have started in the last year is PT Match. We do matchmaking recruiting for practices and PT practices and therapists. The team members, your employees, are your other customer. And everything we talk about in the customer experience side of things applies to your internal team. What's your most effective, most powerful recruiting tool?
People who are already on your team?
Yeah, your current staff telling people
this is a great place to work.
How great it is. Yeah, I mean, they have classmates, they have friends who are therapists. They go out, somebody starts bitching about their job and complaining about this or that. They go, oh, that's not like where I work.
Right.
Over here, we do this. These, management does this and this. They're great to us, whatever. Those folks are going to want to come work for you, right? So it is. You mentioned the thing earlier. It's uncomfortable, right? But when you really confront it and you really start to get the flywheel going, by the way, it is a flywheel. It's hard to get going, right? But once it's rolling and you want to make it go a little faster, you want to make improvements, you can keep adding on. And yeah, you're way ahead of the competition and in a place where it's very difficult for them to catch up to you.
All right. So what's the next step then? If someone says we already have great word of mouth, then
about what?
That's a great question. Like you said, our clinic's great. We're great. Everything we do.
About what?
The experience. People rave about us.
Yeah, that's too generic. About what?
About what?
Specific, granular. What? Because if you don't know that, right? Or maybe you know it, but it isn't top of mind, and you're thinking, well, no, we get great ratings. About what? What is it that allows you or empowers, enables people to refer somebody? What stands out? How do you stand? And I like to say stand apart instead of stands out, right? And I have one of my presentations, I have a picture of penguins, right? This giant group of penguins. If you want to be the tallest penguin, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
I tell my clients, I want you to be a flamingo, right? Or a chimpanzee in the crowd of penguins, right? That stands apart from the crowd. That's qualitatively different. People will notice. Again, uncomfortable. I don't want to create controversy because, anytime that you do that, by the way, and I mean, you've seen this and you can come up with examples too. When people love me that much, there are other people who hate me that much.
Yeah.
Or don't like or don't want to be associated. So again, we try to peanut butter it. We try to be inoffensive so that we never get a bad review. Dude, if I get a bad review for the right reasons,
great.
Totally.
I have a recurring social media post on a 1-star iTunes review or Apple Podcast review. It's great. I'll share it again. It's reminding me to share it again. It was a woman who logged on to listen to her niece who was on my podcast. So the niece is a PT. This is just a woman. And her stereo was broken. So she only heard me and not the guest because something was wrong with her headphones. So she was like, great podcast, love it, but I could only hear the hosts. And I'm like, awesome. I could not have done it. I cannot come to your house to fix the stereo, but I'm glad you loved the half of conversation that you heard. So that's great. I want to go back.
Let me give you two more examples though, because I love this, right? Everybody's seen the meme with the sign outside the cafe, the worst, come on in for a cup of the worst coffee one woman on Yelp ever had.
It's great. It's great. It's great.
Right. There's another one. If you probably heard this, but you can go on YouTube and Google the Alamo Draft House.
Oh yeah.
Review. Right. This woman's really, really upset about they kicked her out for texting during the movie.
Great.
And she left a voicemail about it all. And they're like, yeah, at the end it says, yeah, and you're not welcome back, texter.
Right.
Right. Because not their target customer.
It goes back to, and I think this was also Seth Godin who said, a brand or marketing, it says that people like us do things like this. Yeah. So if someone right now, there's a lot of people listening who have no idea what the Alamo Draft House is. I'll give you the 5-second view. It's a movie theater And a lot of times, I mean, the one I went to had like, I think they were like car seats. So it felt like it was like a drive-in, right? Like, but indoors. And they sold, and they would deliver food and alcohol to your seats. So it was really, it's a movie theater for sort of adults, a little upscale. So this fits. People like us really enjoy movies and watching them. We don't mind a little interruption because, hey, I want a beer, and the beer will come over quietly. But if you're going to sit here and text, dude, get out, because people like us dig things like this. And if you're not with us, get out. And so what they're doing is they're just planting a flag, and this is what we're about. That's what we're, and this is, you know what? No, I can correct my statement. They are planting a flag saying that's what we're not about. We're about this. We're definitely not about that. Hit the bricks.
You got it. That's exactly it. And again, not everybody's going to like that, and not everybody's going to like that they put that on their YouTube channel, right? And broadcast and social media. Fine, because the people who don't like that shouldn't go. We
don't want them in here anyway. I'm gonna go back to something you said, which I think is a great question that I know I would suggest practice owners ask themselves, which is, and I like when people ask situational questions. You said earlier, people are going to talk about 3 things when they get around the dinner table tonight. So it's like, boom, without it. It's like, I'm already picturing a family or 2, people around the dinner table, and they're each going to talk about 3 things, or maybe 3 things total might only be talked about during dinner tonight, right? How are you going to infiltrate them? I've asked similar questions before when I've worked with companies or we're doing promotional items. Everybody wants to buy, for some reason, and it's low-hanging fruit, so I'll pick on it. Everybody wants to make a T-shirt. They want to do a T-shirt, do a 5K. We're doing a T-shirt. You know what we're going to do? We're having a booth at CSM. We're going to make some swag. We're going to do some T-shirts. And I go, here's the thing. I'm a dude, like a pitching rotation. I have a drawer in my dresser that has T-shirts. Right. So my question is, how are you going to crack the top 10 in my rotation? Because if you're not in the top 10, do you know where you are? You're in my garage in a box. So when I spill motor oil, I clean it up. So are you in the rotation? Do you matter? Or are you, I'll take it because it's a rag. So I think both of these situations are good for a couple reasons. Psychologically, it makes them not just say, hey, why are you great? I'm great because we have great customer service. And then you, of course, will be pushed back to like, where, how, yada. But I like that image of the people are going to talk about 3 things at dinner tonight. How are you going to become one of them? And evidence-based practice, having a doctorate, ain't it. That's not it. That is a slightly taller penguin, to use your vernacular there. It's if that right. And when you were talking about the slightly taller penguin, how do you flip everything on its head? The thing that came to mind first was the Savannah Bananas. Is they were given like $1.5 million in debt, and all you have is you're a AAA or AA baseball team, and they're like, how do we dig out of this hole? And his answer wasn't, extra ketchup. Or, let's make the fireworks go 5 minutes longer. He was like, let's turn everything upside down. Like, let's just be what do you not like about this? We're not going to do that. What do you love about it? We're going to 10x it. We're going to 100x it. And just because you're in healthcare doesn't mean you can't do that. And people will listen to us and say like, well, we're not Banana Ball. We're serious. And I'm like, I understand, but you can give a great experience in a lot of different ways.
Well, that's exactly right. Right. And this is where you want to embrace your uniqueness, right? You want to double down on whatever it is that makes you a little bit different. You want to be more different.
More different. Right? Correct. Yes.
Leveling up that difference, because for the right people, they are going to love you and they are going to tell their friends. And now you're starting to move into that realm of remarkability. I like the specific challenge. And when you're thinking about that person, by the way, none of this, I desperately want our country to be a democracy. None of this stuff is a democracy, all right? Meaning that the most important people that you're going to be listening to around the customer experience, the most important people you're going to be designing the patient experience around are those people that, however you define them. And by the way, that can be whatever it is for you. The common threads I see with a lot of therapists are, they're motivated, they respect what we do, they want an alternative to surgery or medications or whatever. All of those things are really important. What I don't like, Jimmy, is when the big corporate guys get up on stage at PPS or wherever and tell people that your target customer is a 40-year-old woman because she makes all the decisions in healthcare. Dude, put 140-year-old women together in a room. What do they agree on?
I don't know, man. Not a whole lot. I'm trying to picture that chaos, but I don't know. I don't know that they'd agree on everything.
Exactly. So how do you appeal to them? You end up peanut buttering again. You end
You're
up
man.
doing the bell.
You're
You end up
man-made.
trying inoffensive, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
You're right. So instead of that, start going back to. And by the way, this is freeing for a lot of my clients. When we start talking about it, and initially they're pushing back and they're confused and they're trying to get their head around it. But if you define your target customer around the psychological, behavioral, and values kind of attribute, then it starts making sense because you're not confused about why the 83-year-old tennis player and the 42-year-old gardener and the 11-year-old soccer player are all your favorite patients.
Yeah.
Because we're classifying people by the wrong things.
It's switching from a demographic view to a psychographic view. It's like, why do you dig me? Like, go to a Grateful Dead show. They don't aim at 39-year-old anybody's. They're like, do you dig hanging out and jamming? And then like, come on in. Right. So if you look at about it, that was the biggest switch that I had to sort of like unlearn and then relearn a different way is I went from broadcasting. I ran a radio station in Scranton, Pennsylvania that went this many miles. I was on the air from 2 to 7. So that's time and space. And I needed 25 to 34-year-old males because that's what my station was designed to do because those were the advertisers we were going after. So it was time, space, and demographics. And then I launched a podcast as a security blanket when I became a physical therapy student, when I was just like, I'm just going to interview people because I don't learn from reading books. So I'm going to interview people. And then it wasn't about demographics anymore. It was psychographics because I don't care how old you are. I don't care when you're listening and I don't care where you are. I care that we have a psychographic that you're like, I want to learn more about that, or I dig how this goes. So it's more the Grateful Dead, which, by the way, if you want to read a marketing casebook on how to earn and create raving fans, they've been doing it. And Jerry Garcia has been long gone, but they're still doing it because they understand what business they're in. And it's not music, it's experience.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And it's and the other thing, the reason I say it's freeing and we're defining people all the wrong ways is all that demographic stuff goes out the window.
What do you mean?
So
when does it go?
Well, not only is it not age related or what hours they listen.
It's not.
I don't care what their gender is. I don't care their ethnicity. I don't care their religion. I don't care the marital status. I don't care all the other stuff that the marketing world has kind of used to compartmentalize people. And a couple of years ago, my daughter, she's senior in college now, but when she was in high school, she did this entrepreneurship course over the summer. And I was sitting and listening, and there were these college professors in Silicon Valley, right, talking about target market. And it was right then that it hit me. Oh, that's why we're still stuck. The reason we're still stuck on the demographic is because I can count them.
Yes.
So when I'm doing my pitch deck, I can tell you the size of the addressable market. If I do the psychographic version, I don't know how to count them. So it makes it all muddy and unclear. And people, that's not the way the banks and the VCs and the rest of it look at things. But in a small business, dude, you don't need to get 50% of America to buy your stuff.
No. It's more about who wants to come with me, not who can I serve, and not who can I count. It's more subjective than objective, I think, is if you want to break it down. It's subjective in terms of what are you into. Yeah, and it's definitely harder to count and say the total addressable market is X amount and whatever. But I mean, here's another a simple example. If you're not sure or you're afraid of niching down, by the way, the more niche you can be, the more you can charge. The more niche you can be, the more you have the opportunity to stand apart, stand out. It's very scary. People don't want to do it. Again, there's a psychological barriers and issue to all of it. Can I give a real world example of when I tell people? I say, okay, I want you to go to the supermarket. I don't know where you live. I don't care where you live. That's your demographic information. I don't care where you live. I want you to go count how many different kinds of mayonnaises there are in your local supermarket. And then I want you to go and count how many different kinds of hot sauces there are in your supermarket. And you can understand that if you want to blend in, go be one of 11 mayonnaises. And if you want to these people are trying to stand out amongst people who are standing out. Right? Look at the Hot Ones podcast, right? That's the whole thing. It's based on being different. It feels dangerous, but it's actually safer than than not doing it. And it's dangerous to be mayonnaise.
Well, and people get, all of us, right, have a little anxiety over, well, will I have if I decide to focus it on this group, will I get enough patients?
Yeah, I agree.
Two things about that. Number one, I did this with a client way back. They were interested in really focusing more on the running athlete, okay, and runners in particular, but really all running athletes. They're going to start. They're now doing running analysis and performance enhancement stuff in addition to traditional kind of ortho PT, right? When they started down that road, though, there were, same questions came up, like, are there enough people? Will we be able to attract? Da, 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 da. We went on Facebook and just created a fake ad. We didn't publish it, right? We started down the ad thing,
Oh yeah.
and we did people, because you can do interests, right? So we
Correct.
did interest, running magazine, these kinds of things. And we looked in a 15-mile radius and then a 10-mile radius, and there were like 250,000 people, right? And I'm like, could you this year even help 5 or 10% of those people?
Right.
And he's like, no way, we don't have enough capacity. I'm like, then why are you afraid of doubling down on them?
Correct. I mean, it's also been said by people who are way better at math too, which is I think the number was 7 or 8% of people who could benefit from PT ever access PT or are currently accessing PT. So do you want to fight over the 8%, or do you want literally a breakaway, no goalie in net, empty net to the 92%, because no one is bothering with them. No one is bothering with them.
Right.
Which one?
You're exactly right. I mean, I do that math with people, and yes, I lose half of them, but
that's okay. You want to lose half of them because those are the textures at the Alamo Draft House. You're like, you're never gonna. It's too much squeeze and not enough juice.
Maybe. But no, you're exactly right. Like, I remember Jeff Hathaway gave a talk long ago about this topic, how many people actually access PT. He broke it all down. He said, what was really even more disconcerting is they had a work comp mandate from this work comp carrier that mandated before you got an MRI, before you went to ortho or us, you had to go to PT first. Do you know what they got the referral rate up to?
What?
14%.
Wow. There's low-hanging fruit out there, man. But you know what? I don't want to call people low-hanging fruit. I want to say, like, there's low bar to impact people.
Totally. Because they don't know about us, right?
Correct.
So we talked about leverage word of mouth earlier. I have a client who, as we were going through this a couple weeks ago, he's like, oh my gosh, I love doing this. Hang on. And he pulled up a video on YouTube where he had pulled out his phone in the clinic and he just started filming Ms. Sharon. And he asked her, so how you doing? What's going on? 4 weeks ago, I couldn't stand up straight. You guys have been so great. This is where I am now. Not done yet, but da-da-da-da. She told her story, and with very little editing, he did a much better job production-wise than I would have, but with not a lot of editing, right? It had the call to action, the phone numbers at the end. It had Miss Sharon's story, da-da-da. And, there they are. And that's her telling you about how great we are and how we can help you. How many people are going to see that YouTube, right?
The example I used this morning was making fun of myself. I said, listen, most people can get a first date, right? That's just a quick interaction. Hi, how you doing? Do you want to have dinner, next week, whatever? Okay, you got it. Then you get the first date. And this is what happens, I think, a lot when PTs or anybody, I don't want to single out our profession, but there's a lot of professions. So you have 3 different options when you're with a girl on a first date. I can talk about the guy down the bar that she shouldn't go out with. You shouldn't go down the street because that guy, he's not evidence-based, or he has no experience. Do you want to talk about that guy? You can spend your time talking about that guy. Second option is you talk about yourself. I don't know if you know this, but I have a doctorate from this degree, from this school, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this. And of course, It's comical. And the third option is you talk about her.
Right.
Who's going to the second date? And when you say it's so obvious in the relationship example, but I'm like, I'm laughing at you because you keep talking about yourself in your marketing. And I'm telling you, it comes off the same way because you're not in the PT business. You're in the relationship business. So talk about them.
Jane, yes. Also with your recruiting and hiring.
Correct. That is also right. So now, good transition. Good.
Same exact thing, right? All the job postings are all about us. Dude, so how old is this? I got published in Forbes magazine because I said you should change your recruiting posting to sound like the Pina Colada song.
Oh. Do you like pina colada? Do you like it called? Oh, so it's talking about do you instead of me.
Exactly. It was a personals. I mean, if you go back and listen to it, it's from the 70s. It was a newspaper personals ad, and it was a fictitious, imaginary, whatever. And it's actually kind of a terrible end to all of it because they get back together. He's posting an ad and finds his
his significant other answering the ad.
Yeah, they get back together because he advertised, which is weird. But the reason it resonated not only with the person in the story, but with so many other people who wanted to listen to it, is because yes, it talked about the other person.
So does that picture? So does that story you told? How will you get into the 3 things they're going to talk about at dinner? I did a similar ad. I actually didn't know that's how the Pina Colada song. I didn't really know what the Pina Colada song was about. I just sung along like most people who heard it when they were 12 years old. I did this. I ran a radio station again in Northeast Pennsylvania. There was a local weekly entertainment magazine, right? So where the bars are, yeah. And so we partner a lot because I was a rock station, and I needed to hire weekend DJs. And the pitch was this: it's minimum wage. You are going to work all the holidays. You are going to work essentially when any of the full-time people want to not work. The pay is horrible. You're the lowest person on the totem pole. There's probably not a whole lot of room for advancement because you'd have to wait for someone to die or quit. So we did exactly that. Is we put out a center page ad in the local weekly newspaper and essentially said worst job ever. Minimum wage. You stand in a room. You stand in a padded room and talk to people that you can't see all day. And we had 1 million people apply for the job because, of course, I was like, I didn't want them. What is that? What are you showing me? Ernest Shackleton South. What is that?
Yeah.
I don't know it.
Ernest Shackleton took an expedition to the South Pole because he was going to go to the North Pole and somebody beat him to it. Okay. And he was competing with government funded at the time, the British government funded expedition where they selected people based on, their connections and who's nephew and all that other stuff. Shackleton is famous for putting out, and you can Google this, they have a job posting that said basically, months of darkness, hard, whatever, likelihood of success,
low,
minimal, glory in case of success, but there's a chance of dying, all this, apply here. And the thing that was so significant about it, like when building a culture, is they got iced in. They got stranded, Jimmy, in Antarctica for months and had to hike out. And you think about hiking over ice to the water with the boats, because the ship is actually, they recently found the ship. If you look up the Endurance, they have dropped a submarine down and looked at it. It got crushed in the ice and it sank. But it didn't sink immediately. It got frozen in for months, and they lived off their provisions, and they ate their dogs and other terrible stuff. But they had to drag these boats out and haul them over the ice. And you think that sounds easy, but look at the picture. That's the ice.
That's horrible. And
they had to do that for miles, like miles and miles, and only a group of them I forget, sailed to San Juan Fernandez or something, got people, came back and rescued the rest of the crew. Literally took months, and everybody in his expedition survived, and most of them went back for the second time.
Do you want another Stanford professor or college professor example of where the professor was wrong? And I forget the name of the guy, and it was the Tough Mudder. There's Spartan Race and Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
So I was at one of the first Tough Mudder races because I was in radio, saw an online post for it, and I was a triathlete and a runner. And I was like, this is weird. This is an adult, this is like an adult kid thing. This is the anti-race race. So I reached out through the radio station. So I was like, I'm not selling you anything. I just want to be in the race for free because it was closed. I'll promote it. And he's like, we don't need promotion, but yeah, come on. We're probably going to do this next year. And then, so I got to hang out with the dude who launched the first Tough Mudder. And he was like, I did this as my last paper in school. And he was like, my professor told me it would never work. But he was essentially advertising, you're going to get dirty. It's going to be horrible. You're going to be sweaty and smelly, and it's uphill, and you're going to crawl through whatever. And droves of people showed up because he wasn't looking for people who were looking for a tea party, but he knew his audience and he knew the psychographic of them.
You got it. No, you're dead on. So I love this whole idea though of being different and what you did um, with the ad, because that's the other thing that we all try not to do, right? I'm posting a job. I don't want to tell you the bad stuff.
Right. I'll tell you later. I'll slip it by you.
Well, exactly. So I trick you into coming on board, and then you find out. You're going to find out.
You're going to waste your
Right?
time, the client's time,
Their time, well,
everybody's
the
time.
employees' time, right? They're not going to be happy. And that's where you start peeling back the onion. You tell them, hey, we work hard. You're going to see X number of patients a day. You're going to do this. We expect these things from you. Share that also, because the thing, just like your ad, just like Shackleton's ad, the right people are going to apply. You're going to save yourself a ton of time.
So you're tackling something else that we were segueing a while ago. Then we got to start talking about anti-ad ads, which is again, do you want to be a taller penguin? Do you want to? Again, I used to make radio ads. Do you want to be the car dealership screaming louder during your ad? Or I did an ad campaign where literally the car dealership whispered. And the whole premise of the ad was like, we know our competitors are screaming. Here's the thing. We sell cars at a really great price, and we'd love to put you in one. I've got 49 more seconds just to hang out. You know what? Since they scream a lot, we're just going to play relaxing music for 49 more seconds. By the way, it's Steve's Toyota in Scranton. All right, have a great day. That's the anti-ad ad.
Right.
You scream louder or you whisper. So you're tackling something. I want to know the history behind this, which is we just did a live stream the other day on this. 2 problems that we're looking at in PT. Really long wait times for patients to get to a PT. Right. And these 2 things might be connected. I'd like your thoughts. Is hiring. So you have clinics out there, you have organizations who are like, we got a long wait list. Why can't we hire? Well, so you decided to tackle one of those specifically with an outside the box idea. Why'd you pick this? And then what are you doing to solve it?
Oh man. So why do we pick it? Because it's been a problem for a long time. And it was something like, we said, I've been working with practice owners and I've been teaching and doing talks and stuff for, 5-10 years before that. So this has been a constant pain point for owners and people running practices, right? And what I was doing for the past, 8-10 years was teaching them how to do the recruiting and hiring, which we're going to roll back out, by the way, in under PT Match. But not everybody wants that. Right. Mm-hmm. And even the ones who did it and learned it are still sometimes struggling because you're a practice owner. You got a whole bunch of other stuff to do. That's not always your primary focus, or you kind of end up going in and out of it and having to spend time and effort on it or whatever. So I'm like, I started asking my clients, would you like us to do this for you, to source the candidates and stuff? Because once they get them in the pipeline, they've learned the blocking and tackling and how to select, the right people, how to do it the right way. We've basically taken a modified version of Top Grading, which is a great system to hire people, but it was developed for like the GEs of the world. It requires way too many resources for a small business. So, we've modified that to make it doable. And I was teaching owners this, and they were being quite successful with it, but it was still it was another demand on their time, right? And like, what if we did it for you? And after we launched, I stopped marketing to owners after 2 weeks, Jimmy, because I had more people to onboard than I knew what to do with. I had to sequence whatever. It was like, hang on, there's too much demand. So that part's really good. What we're doing about it, though, this was kind of coupled with, and this is the other side of the why. You ever heard of the Gallup employee engagement survey?
I haven't. I've heard of Gallup, but not the employee engagement survey.
Yeah. They do this engagement survey around American and worldwide employees every year. They've been doing it since 1987. And the numbers are that 70% of American employees are disengaged at work. And like 30%, or if I'm not sure I got that one right, 20 to 30%, somewhere in there, are actively disengaged. That means if you basically got 10 people on your boat, 7 of them ain't rowing and 3 of them are drilling holes in the back of the boat.
That reinforces the 80-20 rule, though, right? Which is 20% of your effort gets 80% of your results, 20% of your employees do 80% of the work.
Yeah. And the thing about that was, so I had latched onto this and I was sharing with somebody in a conversation, and she's like, well, they've been doing that for 50 years. And I'm like, what? Yeah, that survey. And I went back and looked it up. It wasn't 50 years, but they have been doing it since 1987. And the 70% number hasn't really changed.
It's wild.
It's it's gone to 62 and 66 and 72 and all, but it's been around 70 for 37 years now, right? And the other thing was, and I don't have it here, but I wrote another book, Nobody's a Mind Reader, and it's the power of clarity for business owners and leaders. That is the number one recommendation Gallup made for 2023. Their survey 2023 for 2024, the biggest thing is a lack of clarity. People don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, what success looks like in the job. And I'm like, dude, I just wrote and published that book. And I'm going, so what's wrong? Because the tools they're saying were really, really good. However, this is where we go back to what you said earlier. It's a relationship. And I'm like, you can throw all the best tools in the world at a bad relationship. It still ain't going to work.
Right.
So that's where I went back to the drawing board. I'm like, well, people are in the wrong relationships.
Yep.
The wrong work relationship. And with the work thing, the other stat, I do like my numbers, is you're going to be spending 35% of your waking hours at work. So shouldn't you be in a place that you like, with people that you vibe with, that you want to be part of the team?
Answer is yes.
And that to me was just like, holy crap, that's horrible. That's the world we live in. No wonder there's road rage. No wonder there are people yelling at the Starbucks barista. No wonder they're whatever, all the conflict and all the other stuff. Nobody's happy in a third of their life. And I'm like, that sucks. So that's kind of the bigger picture. We're using PT now to figure it out, to make sure we're really dialing it in and getting people in places where they're happy doing it. And ultimately, I want to expand that out to match people with the leadership and the cultures and the priorities and the values of organizations that they align with.
So
there isn't conflict.
So how does this work? So obviously so how does this work in terms of, so you work with clients, so business owners, and then your goal is to, you want to be the Tinder of, but Tinder sounds a little too, a little bit too flippant and not relationship, because Tinder's Tinder, I was reading a case report. They are trying to wash off the hookup app, and they're trying to rebrand to be more of the relationship app, because females were leaving because they didn't want to be seen on Tinder because it had things. So even Tinder is saying, we don't want to be Tinder anymore. We want to be something that's a little more. But essentially, it's a way to match. But so how's it work?
Well, we want to be Match.com.
There it is. That's the right one.
Not Tinder, which is what most recruiters are. Right. They're just simply here, take this candidate interview.
Not a relationship. It's a hookup. You want to be more relationships. You're in for long-term success. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. It's very transactional, because it works, because there's a pressing need. People are desperate. They connect them, they hire them. The recruiter gets paid. It doesn't matter in 6 months, a year, whether they're still employed or they're happy.
Right. It's transaction. If there's a relationship that's a transaction, that's the oldest profession. That's actually illegal most places, except for the Bunny Ranch in Vegas. That's a transaction. You don't want to have you don't want to be part of the transaction, except the recruiter does, because they have the money and they're gone by the time we realize the transaction was a bad one.
You got it. That's exactly it. So I'm great at starting businesses with a bad business model, meaning that this is a long-term play. Right? If it works, it's going to work really, really well, and more people will come, but it's taking a long time to get those stories together, because, we started a year ago. I don't have anybody who's been placed for 2 years, right? Who's happy, who's doing that. But we do the case studies afterward. But yeah, when people are happy, and the employer and the employee are happy 3, 4, 5 months into it, they obviously know a whole lot more about each other at that point than they did previously.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, you're working yourself out of a job, because you're matching people, and it's obviously not a transaction; it's more of a relationship. But this is going to continue, right? You're not going to work yourself out of a job,
No, the market. How many people need a job?
I will not say which organization, but I went to a PT organization. I was surfing around on the job boards, and there were 907 openings. Now I know companies will also put up openings.
Some do,
for predictive and to fill a role that they know will mathematically be open in a couple of months. That's still a large number of openings. Right. It's a lot. It shows that there's a need. There's
a huge need, and there's a need on the other side too, and that's been interesting, because we're still trying to sort out who our target customers are, because I think we have a lot to offer for students and new grads to get them into the right place, but the challenge with them is, in many cases, back to the relationship analogy, they haven't yet had the bad boyfriend. So they don't appreciate the good one, right?
Yeah.
They don't know they need the good one. So they're like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and take this job over here. And you're like, no,
You're like,
you're not going to be there. But yeah, I mean, they got to go do that and experience it. So really, it's the folks with a little bit more experience who've gotten a little bit jaded or a little unhappy. What I'm trying to do is catch them before they're going, oh, there are no great jobs out there, because there are, right? But if we can get them in that sweet spot of I'm not happy, but I don't want to, run away and retire or abandon the profession or
right,
whatever,
correct.
we can totally help them.
PTmatch.io. I like your
Thanks.
website simplicity. Like you literally go there, it's like, here it is. And then it's like, go here for candidates, go here for employers. And this is what we do. And it's not,
Yeah,
the website's not really about you. It's about me in terms of reading it.
well, thanks. Yeah, I didn't know we were going to talk about that today, but I appreciate it.
Well, I feel like it kind of fit in terms of relationships. And that's where I tell people all the time, I came into a PT profession that as a second career person, I was like, this is going to be about anatomy and physiology and bones and joints. And then I started working with people and I was like, oh,
Right.
got it. Psychology, communication. I remember I asked a professor, I was like, I would study for 5 hours or 55 hours, and I would always get like an 85 or an 88. And I'm like, these guys over here, they're getting A's and they're getting 95s. And she pulled me out of the line once and she was like, would you want any of those people touching your grandma? I was like, no. And she goes, right. And I was
exactly.
Like, oh, I got it now. Got it. It's not going to matter soon. Yeah. Is there anything we didn't talk about? Anything we didn't touch on? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot we could touch on because we both dig these things. We could talk for days, but
yeah, I mean, there's so much complexity in running a business and doing all the things like the spinning plates thing, right? I think the thing to do is just to focus in on one at a time. You've got the other ones stable enough for now.
Right.
Decide what your priorities are and what needs work, and whether that's making something okay because it's really bad right now, or taking that thing that everything's okay, but I want to be better at this. Be deliberate in those decisions. That's the big thing I would kind of leave people with.
All right. Well, you have to leave them with one more because the last thing we do on the show is called the parting shot. So you have to do a parting shot. So what is the one thing you'd leave them with? What is an idea, sentiment, or anything that you'd want to leave with the audience?
Be different. Embrace your differences. We're at a time where that's not that people shy away from it, right? It's I don't want to stand out. I don't want to create controversy. I don't, whatever. Be different, embrace that, and be genuine about it. Because we're also in a time where that Instagram effect of it looks like they're doing so much better than me. Jimmy, that's one of the things I get to look behind the curtain on so many different businesses, and it's not going perfectly for anybody.
I mean,
that's the nature of business,
right? How many times, like I remember the first time someone pointed this out for me. They're like, the person who keeps telling you on social media how great their life is. And unfortunately, it's been real examples. And I saw from friends, the person online, well, their life's great. I know them well enough to be like, look how great it is. And then 8 months later, they're divorced. And you're like, how'd that happen? It was like, well, this is where you start to look at psychology and you're like, oh gosh, we're patternistic animals. And it's not like you can predict, but you're like, when you see enough of the same things over and over again, you can sort of narrow down a result. So yeah, it's not always, the grass isn't always, it's never as good as it appears to be. The people keep talking about how great it is. Typically, it's not.
Very, very often.
I want to leave people with don't try to be the tallest penguin. I like that one.
Be a chimp.
Be a chimp. Be a flamingo. Just don't be the tallest penguin. Sturdy, how do you want people to contact you if they're like, yeah, I want to talk more about this guy? Like, where do you usually send them?
SturdyCoaching.com. I mean, I'm not hard to find. LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. I'll answer messengers. My phone number's on the website.
Yeah.
Just if you Google me, you're going to get me or my kid. So
nice.
Look different. Right?
All right. Well, let's have you back in a little while. Like, think about what your next. I mean, we started with word of mouth, and then we sort of went sideways into the weeds, which is ironically where all the fun stuff is. I don't like to stay on course a lot because that's boring. So think about what our next brew will be, and then we'll do that again.
Love it. Yeah, and maybe we can get you to go later so I can actually have a beer too.
I'm open to it. You never don't threaten me with a good time, as they say. Sturdy, appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks so much for having me, man.